What was I doing?
You were doing
Oh,
something.
social media.
Yeah,
Gotta
okay, that's good.
tell people to get us.
Yeah, I'm gonna send a tweet out right now and then go
Yeah.
post in the Discords.
Cool.
Okay, got that. Alright. Post in the places.
Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and copy that and put it in this Discord. Um,
Alright, my stuff is out.
Me too, I think. Yeah,
Okay,
looks like we're good.
get my chat up and go in. Get rid of that.
I need to. Uh, cool. Oh, I need to turn my thing off. Okay, here we go.
Good?
Good.
Alright.
Good. Sorry.
That's so good. Alright, let me go ahead and start the sounder. Okay, started now. You are listening to Overwatch League Network, The Backcap, the podcast with insight on the Overwatch League's path to pro and contenders analysis. Here are your hosts, Emily Drunk and Ren. What is up, guys, and welcome back to Overwatch League Network, the Backcap, the podcast focusing on the path to pro and Overwatch's Tier 2 scene. I'm your host, Emily Drunk, and tonight is episode 14. We're going to go around the path to pro, discussing the latest news, and break down the Europe playoff quarterfinals for contenders. But before we get into the news and introduce you to my co-hosts, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us here in Twitch chat tonight, and thank our repeat listeners. Of course, as always, I have someone here with me to help break everything down, capping off a week of perfect predictions, at least in terms of the winners. For Europe is my co-host Ren. Ren, you went 4 for 4 for Europe, and we are both kind of all in right now for CIS Hope to draw out all the way through the finals. After some pretty good performances across the board, but really, man, 4 for 4. That's pretty impressive considering how much of a wild card this region can be.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. I mean, I guess I can say the week went pretty much as expected. The CIS game, man. We'll talk about it, but that was crazy, crazy town. Um, Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yep, and we did get two draws in that series, and we weren't kidding when we said that was going to be the closest series that we were going to see, and
Yeah.
it ended up being one of the probably the closest games that we've seen just in Overwatch history at this point. So there is that. We didn't quite get the elusive, map 6, which could potentially happen, but we did go 5. And yeah, going into like a map 4 with a 1-0 scoreline, really not something that you get to see all that often, if at all. That might even be the first time we've actually seen that. I'd have to look back at that.
Yeah, we did have another two draw series once, I think, in EU contenders so far this season, but it's pretty pretty unheard of other than that.
Right, well, let's go ahead and jump to the news this week. So, not a whole lot of news. I mean, there's been like a couple departures, but like, it's kind of hard to really bring a lot to discussion there just because, in a tier 2 scene, there is a lot of moving back and forth, and we're going to kind of be in between tournaments until, Contenders does wrap up. So let's talk about, kind of the where the path to pro starts, and that is with the open division. We talked about how the new season was announced, and we actually have an update on the open division when it comes to not only broadcasting, but also the talent that is going to be involved with this as well. So, Broadcast GG is going to be the ones that are broadcasting open division games throughout the season, and they're basically like planning on having at least 2 matches per stream. So things had kicked off on April 21st. And, this is season 2 of Open Division, and, that's for Europe and North America, and we did get a list for the broadcast talent, and there's a lot of people on this list that I'm familiar with, some friends even. So, just a few names that stand out. Lemon Kiwi. This is someone that does the Overwatch Contenders Daily, which is basically the Overwatch League Daily's Tier 2 show. Which started up very recently. Definitely check them out. I think they're doing 3 shows a week for Contenders, and just Tier 2 as a whole. We have Gilfrost, who had worked with Contenders in the past, aka he was left guy on the desk. We have Kick Tripod, my good buddy John. He's the one that hosts Overwatch League Daily, who does 5 daily shows for the Overwatch League, which is absolutely tremendous stuff. So if you guys aren't following like either of the daily shows, I don't know what you're doing. I mean, there's just so much content that is compacted into, those 15 to 30-minute episodes. Definitely check them out. We have Volamil, who is an esports writer for Esports Heaven and Winston's Lab. And Ryan Central, who also does Overwatch Central. So, there's a lot of, like, big community names that are involved in the talent announcement, as well as several other casters from across NA and EU. And I have to say, like, I am so happy to finally see the entry level play, or at least like open division, getting more chance to be in the forefront, because for the longest time they're like, yeah, I mean, this stuff can be broadcasted, but like only the teams could do it. They didn't really get the production behind them so they could have kind of like a center stage. It was usually just like the players streaming, and it wasn't very consistent. So at least moving forward, now we're going in the opposite direction, so we'll actually get to see open division matches being casted for the foreseeable future, which I'm so happy to see. So I'm looking forward to seeing, some potential Contenders talent maybe dropping down to things that don't work out for Contenders, or seeing some familiar faces that maybe got casted away a little bit. I don't know. There's so many possibilities, though, and, just more tier 2 stuff that we can kind of delve into.
Yeah, I'm excited about the fact that they're going to be more consistent with the broadcasting for sure. I think that it's just important to have that level of structure. Even it kind of again is just legitimizing the esport more as a whole. So that's awesome. Super excited to see a lot of the casting talent that we have here. Like you said, we have a lot of familiar faces. You mentioned most, if not all of them, that I would have anyways. So yeah, super excited to see all that stuff come together.
Absolutely. So keep an eye out for those. I want to say like they're early afternoon for the most part. But yeah, we'll have the link to the tweet in the show notes for sure. But guys, like we finally got the official announcement for the North American and European finals for Contenders. And it's finally nice to have something out there after all this time. So, as we mentioned, the NA and EU finals are going to be held in Poland. That will be May 12th and May 13th. That will be at the Alvernia Planet. So this is not Katowice like I'd hoped for, like we got for the World Cup. But I don't know if you got to see like the picture that they had posted with this venue, but it looks like it's straight out of the moon because it looks like Horizon Lunar Colony. It's one of the weirdest looking buildings. I was like, this is badass. So, we're taking things not only to the moon in game but also outside when it comes to this land environment. And on top of that, we do have a bit of a show match that is going to conclude Contenders this season. So after the region finals, we are going to have the return of the Atlantic Showdown, which is going to be a best of 5 show match that will pit the winner of NA Contenders against the winner of EU Contenders. And, with the playoffs on the line, we got a ton of different casts out there. There's English, French, Russian, German, Spanish, Hungarian, Czech, and Korean. So no matter where you are, chances are you can find something to your liking in regards to the casting. But I'm really happy to see the show match make a return for the showdown, and I can't wait to see which is more than likely going to be an EU victory. But who knows? Maybe Philadelphia can continue that momentum, and that's the team that I'm most looking forward to seeing playing on LAN, just because of how many times like we see the Korean players in action, kind of at a pain disadvantage. So I'm just to see whether or not, maybe that slow start is completely erased when you're all in the same building.
Yeah, no, that could be. I really don't know which way it would go. Like my instinct says to in that show match to give it to Europe, but I mean maybe that ping differential will make up all the difference of them not having to deal with that anymore once the Korean players come on LAN. I mean, we've talked about it so many times. Their Korean players on Fusion University are such skilled players already, even dealing with that. And I mean, that means they can only improve once they get rid of that problem. I do want to backtrack to talking about the Alvernia Planet facility again, just because it does. It looks like the moon, kind of. It's like, I mean, you guys, you gotta check out. I'm pretty sure in the show notes we'll have the link to the what's this called? This article that Overwatch League has given us. But it's like a bunch of domes. Mm-hmm. Like half domes in the building, I mean in the ground, and they've got tubes connecting. It's real. It looks like a space station. It's awesome. So I wish I could go just to see the building and to see the Overwatch games, but the building.
Yeah, it's pretty out of this world, for sure. But like the thing that I was disheartened by is knowing that like we're still a couple of weeks out. So I don't know what the heck we're going to do for our next 2 shows. We'll think of something. Maybe we might even have to break it down region by region and just do a preview for each semis and a prediction for the finals. I don't know. But we're still a few weeks out. Gives the teams plenty of time to get their passports if they need it, get situated in Poland. But I'm greatly looking forward to it. I just wish it wasn't so far away. But luckily, we do have Overwatch League to kind of fill in the gap, so there is always that. And of course, Open Division, which is getting underway as well, guys. But let's go ahead and jump into our breakdown of Contenders EU, because we did have the round of 8, which is the quarterfinals, so the start of the playoffs. So on Sunday, April 22nd, we kick things off with British Hurricane defeating Young and Beautiful. That was with a scoreline of 3-0. And then, as we mentioned, we saw CIS Hope going up against Orclus in Hungary, and this one ended in a 2-1. And that was map score was in 5 maps. Mm-hmm. And then on Monday, so we had back-to-back days, we had the defending champs, Team Giganti, defeat Eagle Gaming 3-0, which is the one that we were split on. And then we had Angry Titans defeat Copenhagen Flames, also by the score of 3-0. Okay, so starting off with the Sunday's games, we had the British Hurricane going up against Young and Beautiful. And Ren, like, how much more could have you asked from Shatter 2K in this one for Young and Beautiful. It seems like no matter what they tried, it was just a constant uphill battle against the Hurricane.
Yeah, no, I mean you're definitely right in that. And Shatter 2K, I mean, to his credit, did I mean he was basically carrying Young and Beautiful at that point. It was like you said, an uphill battle, and the Hurricane were just able to outflank them at every move.
Mm-hmm.
And Shatter had some really great plays both on the Genji, on the McCree, and it just wasn't enough to carry them through. So, I mean, just to give a couple of highlights from the series, even like right at the beginning, Kib of the Hurricane, I mean, he was they came out on Village in Nepal, and he was on the Junkrat, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna break up their tank line," and he's throwing concussion mines into the tank line and pops them off of the high ground. I mean, it's like from that very first moment in the series, it just was like Young and Beautiful weren't able to recover ever again. So,
Right.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Now, I was gonna say, like, throughout the series, I mean, they lost both rounds on Nepal, but it seemed like Young and Beautiful, just as a whole, they couldn't really get anything going because they didn't manage to like complete any of the maps. They only took,
Mm-hmm.
2 points on Ubani. They had attacked first. They got two, and then on Hanamura, they only got the first checkpoint. Hurricane ended up completing the map with over 4.5 minutes still in the time bank, and they were only able to get 2/3 of that overall. But pretty much every step of the way, we got to see one. I mean, you could see the clear differentials between these two teams. The tank and the support line definitely heavily favor the Hurricane. You had Bakken kind of on the back line, playing that Zenyatta role for the Hurricane, doing a lot of times, adding a lot of extra pressure onto Young and Beautiful. And, like, this one pretty much went exactly as we expected. Hurricane being the
Mm-hmm.
top seed out of this region. And Young and Beautiful, one of those teams that was kind of like edging it into the playoffs overall. So, really not much to say in regards to this 3-0. It was pretty clean. Not so much Beautiful, though, for YNB. But we gotta talk about that CIS Hope and Orgulous and Hungry game because this is the one that you and I were like, okay, which way is this going to go? Because, we have CIS Hope, who are the team that tend to draw people out, which did happen again in this series, who have done pretty well against the established teams out there. And then you have Orgulous and Hungary, who are another one of those teams that kind of flew under the radar, but was also contesting the best teams out there. And, you and I weren't lying when we said, okay, this is going to be the one to watch. And when we go into a map 5 with a score line of 1-1, it's close because maps 2 and maps 3 both went to a draw. And I know some people get discouraged when, a draw happens in games, but like this series was as close as it could possibly get. And for Orglis, they basically had lost Ilios because, they gave up 2 uncontested initial caps in this series, but man, like so much back and forth in this series. They drew on Numbani and Horizon Lunar Colony. No surprise with Horizon, just because it is 2 CP. Lol. But we gotta see, like how much work Sharik and Zhao can do, and so much of that is just backed by the fact that their support line is able to keep them up. And Shax, looking at Orgulous and Hungry, throughout that series, like his tracer play has been a step above the rest of Contenders, and it sucks to see him kind of out of it. But like I don't know, man. Like we saw Kenzie doing what he normally does, and Unfixed playing some roles that we really haven't gotten to see from him overall. But like I don't know what else you could have asked for in this series because we just got a little bit of everything from both sides, and ultimately it was CIS Hope who we had both picked moving on. And they're an interesting case because not only are they able to stall things to a point where it could be a draw, but they're also not always having to use their ult economy to actually take the fights also. So, this is a team that can really bring the fight to just about any team in EU right now, and that includes the British Hurricane, who they will be going up against in the semis.
Yeah, that matchup with CIS and the British Hurricane is something that I was going to touch on in a minute. But since you mentioned it, I mean, I'm just super excited to see that because if if there are any two teams in EU going to the semifinals that have an equal chance to take the championship, it's those two teams. The British Hurricane just have like an insane level of coordination, and CIS, I mean, I think the thing that eventually ended up winning them this series, however close it might have been, was just their level of flexibility. And it's something that I've talked about on previous shows. I mean, they just have that fluidity of their team that you just don't see all the time, because you get Kenzie's normally on the tracer, but he switches on to Widow, and Unfixed just picks up that tracer like that. Like, it's no problem at all. And like you said, we saw Unfixed on several other roles that we don't often see him on. And again, it's just fluid for him. It's natural. There was a lot of give and take throughout the series. I mean, especially right at the beginning, even on Nepal. If you could tie Nepal, that map probably would have gone to a tie as well. It was just so close the whole time. But eventually the CIS came out on top. And I mean, we both did peg CIS as taking this game, but I did not think it would be, I mean, a 2-1 going to 5 maps. That's about as close as it gets.
Absolutely. So, moving on to Monday's games, we saw, Gigante come in against Eagle Gaming. Eagle Gaming went into this, they had a perfect 5-0 in that regular season. So we started things off in Numbani. And, looking at Davin for Gigante, he was on the Zarya in this one. And, he was gaining, over 50% ult charge in basically every team fight. So, yeah, that's a lot of high energy. And really, we saw Eagle Gaming really struggle on the attack. It took them up until overtime to secure point A. And then, looking at the series, like, we had LH Cloudy really coming up big with the Earthshatters, which really allowed for some pretty easy cleanup from RCK's D.Va. And, Eagle Gaming were trying to, like, stockpile their ultimates going into that third point, but, again, Cloudy, he ended up blocking Super Fluke Shatter, and they were held at that first corner on Numbani, which is a spot where we normally don't see it being held when it gets to that third point. Normally it's past that S-curve.
Right.
And then you look at Gigante's attack, and, they took point A in, like, a minute. Mm-hmm. And they were able to, like, build the ults that they did use for point A not too long after that, but what ended up happening was pretty interesting, because we saw Eagle Gaming, and they decided to defend very far up at this point, like right after the capture. So it was essentially like we were playing point A all over again. And by doing so, they basically managed to burn off a little bit over a minute on a clock by doing this. But it was really like RCK's D.Va in this series that was really coming up big on Numbani. And Gigante were able to take it after a pretty big self-destruct that ended up getting both of the supports. And then, kind of moving on, we saw Gigante switching back to that Ana and Zen combo that, they've pretty much brought out in full force lately. Probably the best healer duo, at least with that particular combo. And we saw Gigante's ability to collapse when it came to Eagle Gaming changing their attack patterns, and it just made things very difficult for Eagle Gaming. We had Nil and Davin tearing up the backline, which basically at this point just allowed RCK to kind of stay back and play a bit more defensively on Horizon. And then Nil did something that no one should do. He made a pretty crucial mistake at one point on defense, because he woke up Nox, who was sleeping. He was mid-primal rage. And, Eagle ended up capturing the point, but the rest is kind of history. Gigante made quick work of point A. They had, like, over 5 minutes left on the time bank. Reaper and his Coalescence was able to do some pretty heavy lifting, because they basically backed Eagle Gaming into, like, one of the really small corridors or entranceways, basically, so it was getting a ton of value out of that. And Eagle Gaming, I talked about last week, I'm like, if this team does not adapt, then I don't think that they can win this. And that is something that we did not see out of Eagle Gaming. And, we just saw, some grenade deflect spam coming out of Nil that really opened up the point. And, Gigante just ended up taking it 3-0. So, we saw kind of like both looks from Eagle Gaming with this. We kind of saw, part of the B squad coming in when they wanted to run the heavier tank strat that they have been known for throughout the regular season, but we didn't see them adapt to what we knew would be working for Gigante, and that was ultimately their downfall. But all in all, like, Gigante, this is a team that won Contenders last year, only had one person return from that championship roster, and here we are going into the semifinals, and you know, they have they're going up against Angry Titans, who are another one of those teams that always seems to be in contention, but Giganti have looked pretty damn good, and I'm really curious to see how that upcoming series is going to play out on the lower end of the bracket.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely am curious to see how that'll go. Just because, I mean, I feel like we keep saying this, but EU, all the games are just always going to be close. That's just how this season has been. But Giganti, I mean, this week they just made that victory look easy, to put it bluntly, and it kind of bummed me out because I was like, maybe Eagle can take it. They came in with a really, I mean, off of a hot streak. They went, like you said, they went 5-0 in the regular season. But I mean, part of that I've kind of asked myself, and I really don't know. Part of that seems like it might be because Group A was more stacked, just in general, and part of it might have been that Group A also was more evenly matched because they were all so well stacked. So I mean, just coming into the top seed of Group B going against even the number 4 seed in Group A doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have an easy time of it. Talking about Eagle kind of running that, I guess B squad is what you want to call it, with their more tank heavy compositions, is something that I wanted to bring up because on Nimbani, you mentioned their level of adaptation, or their lack of it, I guess. On Nimbani, they came out with a quad tank at first on their first attack. Eagle did, and the one time we saw them try to adapt to whatever Giganti was doing at the time is they switched to a mirror comp and went triple tank instead. And I mean, all that did was burn time for them. They lost ult charge, and then they just, I mean, they banged their heads against point A for, I mean, like you said, it took them into overtime to be able to cap it. So I did appreciate their defense on point A take 2. That was really entertaining on Nimbani. I'd never seen that done before. So kind of a unique strat, and it bought them time later on down the line, but it just didn't pay off all the way in the end. So definitely a lot of good cohesion coming through on Giganti. I think, like you said, RCK had a big game, and a lot of that was thanks to the support that he had. I wanted to highlight Masa, whatever, their Lucio player. I mean, he was just like constantly enabling the teams on Lucio, and like he had some pretty sick sleep darts on Ana too. So overall, a really good series for Giganti, obviously, coming out with the 3-0.
Well, speaking of heavy tanks, that's exactly what we got to see out of Angry Titans in their series against Copenhagen Flames. So, Titans come out on Nepal running that quad tank that they've been known for. They got a really early D-Mech on Echo, and that was after a hook, and that really got them that initial point capture on this map. But there was a lot of back and forth with this one, a lot of jockeying for position when it comes to where they were on the map for round 1. Naga counter attack, was pretty good. You had Poppy Fresh kind of on the back line, really sticking pulse bombs, and he secured like a double pulse bomb kill, which was pretty huge. So kind of went back and forth. Naga came out with a ton of Junkrat in this series. He was another one of those players that was having a pretty big impact overall. He was getting 50% off his rip tire per fight, basically. But the problem was Angry Titans having that beefy presence was just a little bit too much to deal with. Yes, you can get your ult charge really quick with a Junkrat, especially with those bigger bodies, but it wasn't enough to really dispose of that. So, we saw in round 2 of this on Nepal, we saw Onigod coming out with the Zarya, and his Zarya charge was absolutely going through the roof, soaking up a ton of damage that was coming from Naga's Junkrat. We got to see Urki come up pretty big on the Roadhog. I know there was at one point where there was a Rip Tire coming straight for him. He took a breather, he survived that, and ended up getting Naga after he hooked him off of the bridge, which was pretty cool. And, the Flames just weren't able to flip the point. And that even came at times where they had the body advantage on a point, but, Angry Titans had more survivability despite it being, 5v6 or 4v5 whenever it did happen. We did end up going to Hollywood, where we got to see Urki on the Sombra really being the person to turn the fight more times than not. His EMPs were averaging about like 5 hacks every time he used the ultimate, so the cleanup came very easy for the Titans on Hollywood. And on the attack, all they had to really do was like bully the Flames at this point. They basically pushed them into the cafe. They took the easy tick on that map, so that one was over before it really even began. So then we go to Hanamura, and we got to see Luddy with the anti-nades really leading to a ton of staggers. Marie was just kind of getting caught out very early in a lot of these team fights for the Flames, which was kind of bad news for them. And, the Titans were another one of those teams that did not have to use a lot of their ult economy to really win these team fights. So they were able to stockpile 5, 6 ults. So whenever the Flames could have the best, possible scenario to take a point, they were basically just able to even out and trade ultimates, which was huge for them. But there was one play in particular that I thought was really cool. Poppy Fresh, on the Tracer was able to juke Urki's Dragon Blade, and we got to see him like clutch out the fight with a massive 3K to capture point A. Unfortunately, though, for the Flames, their point B attack didn't go anywhere, but I think that alone, that was probably one of the best plays that the Flames did put out this week overall. But really, I mean, it was another 3-0, unfortunately, so wasn't as close as we had hoped, but, we did see some pretty good things coming out of the Flames. But again, the beefiness of the Angry Titans and that 4-tank, or quad-tank, whatever you want to call it, strat is going to be a lot to deal with. But, Giganti were able to deal with the triple tank for Eagle Gaming. Maybe they can do the same with the quad tank coming from Angry Titans in the semis.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I mentioned earlier, I'm excited to see that matchup. I think it'll be really close. I don't know. I mean, if I'm going to predict it right now, actually, I'm pretty sure even in the bracket, I have Giganti selected to win that series. But I wouldn't be surprised if they'd be able to deal with that tank heavy lineup again just as easily as they have in the past. A couple of highlights that you brought up that I just want to drive the point home on for sure are like you said, Luddy's nades, especially on Hanamura. I mean, I feel like on that map, especially on point B, like there was a lot of good like team communication going on. You had your tanks positioned really well because they were dealing with those the line of sight healers. Both of their supports were on line of sight heroes, so it's just like, I don't know. I mean, that's like a point of frustration for me as a support main, I guess. That's just something that I always get riled up about, like, oh, like I can't see you, I can't hear you kind of thing. And like seeing that just made me really appreciate these guys like being mindful of their positioning. Obviously, like they're much better players than I am, so it's not that hard for them. But I just want to highlight it a little bit. And also like you said, Urki Sombra on Hollywood. I mean, at the beginning of the season, especially, I was griping a lot because we were just seeing Sombra left and right, and I was like, wow, I really hate watching Sombra gameplay. Like, it's just not engaging for me, I guess. But really, the issue was that I hate seeing bad Sombra gameplay, and we saw a lot of that at the beginning of the season. And as the new patches came in and the new like people kind of got used to running that a little bit more, I mean, the skill level that we've seen with this hero has just skyrocketed in the past 6 weeks. So definitely want to highlight that. I mean, he had, like you said, some really impactful EMPs, so definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, and if you want to see worse Sombra play, you could always go check out the Overwatch League right now outside of, Dante for the Shock.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is that too.
They'll learn someday, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. All right. Well, we do have, the LAN playoffs coming up. So just as a reminder, for NA, we do have Toronto Esports going up against Envision Esports in the first semifinal, and then we have Fusion University going up against Optic Academy. And then, over in Europe, we have British Hurricane going up against CIS Hope, and then Angry Titans against Giganti. So Ren, we're gonna save like our initial previews for later on, but I want to get your thoughts. Out of these 4 series, which one are you looking forward to seeing the most between the 2 regions?
Oh boy. I mean, we talked about it today. British Hurricane and CIS Hope. It's going to be so close. I mean, just the dominance that they've both experienced throughout the season, I think, is going to be a nail biter. I don't know. I just don't even know which. I mean, I picked CIS Hope in the bracket, but I think it's maybe we might have some crazy draws, or definitely go into a game 5 on that one.
I think for me, the one I think is going to be the closest is probably going to be the Toronto versus Envision game. You know, Envision is one of those teams that has, like, their team synergy has been pretty good, but I don't think they're quite executing to the extent that they need to be. And then you have Toronto, who across the board has been playing super consistently. So that's one of those series that I think is going to tilt either way. I'm still sticking with Toronto to win it all for NA, but you know, that Fusion University series is going to be pretty interesting too. I want to see who's going to advance, but I I just have that feeling like Phoenix University is going to not get up to the typical start that we see out of them. Mayhem Academy didn't do so hot, which was kind of to be expected. Fusion just kind of like shot right through them. So hoping Optic Academy at least shows up a bit more than Mayhem. But you know, if Optic Academy decides to C9, Fusion should be able to take it pretty quickly. But I'm looking forward to Toronto and seeing what they can do. Just seeing Dalton. I mean, Dalton's really been my favorite player to watch throughout all of Contenders, probably as a whole. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. And, you know, seeing Crimzo on the Zenyatta for Envision is always a treat to watch as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's going to be a close game for sure. I mean, both teams are, I mean, they're there for a reason. They've made it, and they both deserve to be in the semifinals. So we'll see which way it goes. I think for that game specifically, I would pick Toronto as well, but who knows? We'll see.
Absolutely. So is there anything else that you want to bring up before we go ahead and close things out tonight?
I think that about covers it.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, if you guys want to help us out, one of the best ways to do that is to leave us a review over on iTunes or your podcast and app of choice, whether that is for the Backcap, which is our secondary show, Overwatch League Network, which is our flagship. Of course, we do also have our variety Overwatch show in Heroes Never Die. Any feedback or constructive criticism is always welcome, just because that will offer us some insight on how we can improve and make for a better listening experience for you guys. We just had our game night last Saturday. We do have another game night coming up that will be on Saturday, May 19th, so join us at 7 p.m. Pacific Time for another night of friendly community competitive games. And again, guys, we will stream that live over on this current Twitch channel, and I'll be doing that. I might be shoutcasting. I don't know. It all depends on my mood and how many drinks in I'm in at the time, because, I mean, there is quite a bit of that during our game nights, kind of across the board as a whole. But Ren, why don't you go ahead and let the people know where they can get a hold of us on the social media and all of that good stuff?
Sure thing. If you want to email the show, you can do so at owlnshow@gmail.com. We're also streaming on Twitch right now at wow, words, at twitch.tv/owlnshow. We hit Twitch affiliate. Oh my god. And you can support the show by subscribing to our Twitch channel and unlock our network emoticon. So thank you to everyone who've been watching the shows live and who subscribed so far. We really appreciate having you guys' support. If you want to catch us live, we are on 3 nights a week. We have our flagship OWLN on Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. The Batcap, where we cover Overwatch Contenders and the Tier 2 scene, on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific. And we have Heroes Never Die on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. Starting May 15th, the Batcap and Heroes Never Die will actually be switching nights. Heroes Never Die will be live on Wednesdays at 5 Pacific, and the Batcap will be moving to Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific. So just keep that in mind. That'll be coming up in a couple weeks. We also have a great Discord community going on over at discord.me/OWLN show. And we are also on YouTube. If you just search Overwatch League Network, you will find us. We're getting close to our custom URL, so you could really help us out by subscribing to our channel, and we would really appreciate that. All our podcast episodes, top plays, and other videos can be found over there. Totem, why don't you let them know where they can find you on the social media?
All right, well, you can find me over on Twitter. That is at Little Bluebird. I mostly troll people on Twitter, I'm not gonna lie. Or I just have like some savage response to something I see in the Overwatch League. Or at another podcaster who I'm good friends with. It's only good fun, guys. That is at Totally Drunk CTR. I do have a Twitch, but usually I'm not live on that channel. Usually I'll be live here at least 3 nights a week, sometimes 4 nights, depending on if there's a game night or another event. But, we are going to have some more community events coming up outside of our normal game night, so stay tuned for that. I'll probably have details about that next week on our shows, so more to come, guys. But Ren, why don't you let everyone know where they can get a hold of you?
Definitely, sidebar. Definitely check out our game nights if you haven't already, because it was a blast last weekend, whatever days it's on. It's on Saturdays. Anywho, no, it was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that I got to go hang out. I didn't even get to play because my computer is being a thing, but like it's just a great community, and I really appreciate everyone who comes out to those game nights. It makes it a lot of fun for us. Anywho, if you want to find me on Twitter, I am at Primal Ren. That's Ren with 2 N's. I do a little bit less trolling than Totem, but still like a healthy amount. It's you got to have that healthy scoop of troll every day. And I also stream sporadically on Twitch at twitch.tv/primalren, again with 2 N's. So catch me there.
All right, well, guys, again, we're a few weeks out from the playoffs, so we'll figure out what we want to do for the next couple of shows. We might just break it down region by region, and maybe we'll have a bit more lengthier discussions on some other aspects of competitive Overwatch, so stay tuned for that. But for now, guys, that is going to do it for us here tonight on the Backcap, and we will see you guys back tomorrow for Heroes Never Die, guys. Have a good night. Thank you for listening to Overwatch League Network, the Backcap. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at OWLN Show, engage with the community on Discord at discord.me/OWLN Show, and join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday night over on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN Show.